Good introduction of you. So, Regine Moore is an innovative, transformative thought leader, relationship builder, and coalition creator skilled at developing strategic plans and executing with excellence. I'll say that again, executing with excellence. She leveraged a 10 plus years foundation in consumer and multicultural marketing to manifest, to bring to life customer centric problem solving and inclusive collaboration. Excited by complex projects. I'm not always excited by complex projects, but she has broad scale marketing campaigns and excels in first class execution. Look at that word execution comes in again, and mitigating risk by bringing diverse individuals to the table. Regine Moore is passionate about authentic storytelling, coupled with strategic partnerships to deliver results that highlight the beauty within individuals, communities, and companies. She seeks to be a force for good, to shift how people think and move and understand communities, unlike their own, unlike their own, to create a more equitable environment. She influences up and cross functionality to establish champions both within the organization and beyond. Regine believes in servant leadership with decisiveness. I can attest to that. She believes that empathy is the first step to progress and brings others with her to that journey. She's an expert in strategy, integrated marketing, constituent relations, campaign management, multicultural marketing, agency management, event planning, corporate diversity. So, ladies and gentlemen, unmute your mic and welcome the Director of Constituent Relations at Walmart, Regine Moore.
That was a nice intro. Why, thank
Um,
you, thank you.
I just read your LinkedIn profile. That's all. That's so, Regine, tell the people who you are in terms of, in addition to what we just said, talked
Yeah.
about. Talk about how did you get from where you from school to Walmart? Like how did that journey go from Florida FAMU, so historically black college, historically black college and university. Round of applause to that. Woo! So how did you go from FAMU to work to working at Walmart?
So I'm originally from New York, Long Island, New York. I was introduced to FAMU through my mentor, a fabulous lawyer in DC who was talking to me about their 5-year MBA program, and I was just like, okay, that sounds really good. When I had the chance to visit, it felt like home. And so I was excited to go to Tallahassee, nervous, never having been from home that far for so long. But confident in my abilities and in order to make it happen. FAMU was one of my best decisions of my life. I'm so grateful to having gone there, having a wonderful education, and just created a network that has truly strengthened me when I was there, and even more so since I've left. So, one quick word: meet your people where you're at and stay connected because they will keep you aligned and as well as to get to your next step in your next journey. You
Say
never
that
know
one
what
more
you'll need in
time.
the future.
Say that one more time, and slowly
Uh,
meet. Yes, one more time. Meet your
Uh,
people.
Make sure you meet the people where you are, connect with them, create genuine bonds and connections because you never know when you may see them again, need them again, or vice versa, right? Like having that community, we call it family, has really meant the world to me. I've been to Arkansas, I now live in New Jersey, but I can go to almost any state and either know someone because of FAMU because I went to school with them or because of someone else if I need to be connected with someone. So really create those networks and genuine and authentic relationships because that's going to take you really far. Um, but I went to Tally, got my MBA, and then when it came to graduate, it was an interesting time because it felt like jobs were a bit more difficult to get. A lot of my friends, line sisters, were just moving to Atlanta and then going to figure it out. But, growing up for me, that wasn't an option. I was like, I'm going to leave here with a job. And so, Tyson Foods was on a college tour, came to FAMU, and I knew I wanted to do marketing, preferably within the CPG world. I wanted a product that I could taste or touch. And so I got an offer from them, and I got an offer from a financial services company in Charlotte. So just to give you a little bit, this is this New Yorker who's about to go into her real life and trying to figure out where she's going to be. Her options are Arkansas, a state, mind you, that I had to look up on the map again because I think there are a couple of forgotten states, and Arkansas is one of them. I knew like two things about Arkansas: Bill Clinton, Little Rock, and a show I saw on HBO about Little Rock, which did not leave very favorable impression on me. So I was like, I don't know about Arkansas. Then the other option was Charlotte, but that was the financial marketing. But Charlotte was like, "Ooh, Charlotte's this new up and coming sexy city. It's like the up and coming Atlanta, maybe. I can like, live and have a life here." Um, got the offers, and it wasn't until I spoke with someone at Tyson who said a statement that stays with me to this day. She says, "Well, what do you like about your role?" And I said, "Well, it's in Charlotte. It's going to be, my weekends are going to be great. It's going to be a job I'll learn a lot." And she said, I'm not sure if you really are interested in what you'll be doing. And you're going to work far more than you play. So you can't always live for Friday. You have to make sure you're enjoying what you're doing Monday through Friday as much as you can." And it was after that conversation I said, I guess I'm moving to Arkansas because I wasn't excited about the financial marketing role. I was excited about Tyson Foods and being able to create marketing campaigns and product management with a product that I can taste and feel. So I moved to Arkansas, and I was at Tyson Foods managing various product lines, some innovations. I don't know if you guys have heard of Anytizers, but I helped launch that. That was really exciting for me. Um, but there came a time when I was at Tyson Foods where I wasn't happy anymore. Sunday nights became the worst night of the week for me, and I was like, I have to change. I am a big believer in mental peace and my mental health, and I do want to enjoy what I'm doing as much as I can, and I wasn't enjoying it. I had just gotten married, and I knew Walmart was up the street. So I said, let me try to get to Walmart, get this big W on my resume, and then I'm out of Arkansas because I had never planned to be there for as long as I was, even at that time. So I got into Walmart. I was in private brands at first, and again, working on new products to hit shelf that were a national brand equivalent. Then that rotated to consumer product consumables, things like beauty products, dog food, and working with national brands and creating campaigns there. And it wasn't until when I was on the beauty products where I was asked to look at creating campaigns that helped to amplify the audience. And I was noticing that a lot of the campaigns didn't seem to have the representation that I felt was necessary when looking at America. And so I really started pushing for more um, Black and brown people within the ads, and how do we make sure we show diversity in a way that's very authentic, to really represent not only the brands but also who Walmart is. And so that started my journey into doing more from a diversity and multicultural space. From there, social media was growing. This is when Facebook was just trying to figure out how to get involved with brands. Brands were trying to figure out how to utilize Facebook. And so I said, I want to go to the social media marketing team. This is the future of what marketing is. So I was able to get that role, and I worked with Facebook. We're starting to figure out what Instagram was going to be. So that was just starting. So I just wanted to give you some context of timing, right? It feels long ago. It really wasn't that long ago. Social media is so young on the grand scheme of marketing. But even there, they were trying to figure out how to do proper targeting and proper ways of reaching audiences. And so that was more work inside the multicultural space. Some years passed where we had a reorg, and I was voluntold into a role of specific multicultural media. Um, and I wasn't happy. Like, I did not want the role. I saw the person who had it before, and she looked oftentimes stressed, some days miserable. And I was like, I don't want that job. I don't want to be somewhere where I have to constantly, fight for the things and stress myself out. I just had a baby. Life was good. I was going to Cali, going to Facebook offices, YouTube. Their offices are amazing, by the way. It was a good role. And I remember going home and praying about it. And it was one of those regime, excuse my language for a moment, put your big girl panties on, do the job. If you don't like it, you can get a new job, but this is where you are. So I jumped into the role, and by the end of the year, it was the best role I never knew I wanted. I felt so fulfilled to be in a space where my voice wasn't because I was just the Black girl on the team. It was part of my role, but it also allowed me to create a space where others in that industry saw me, and that's not always what has happened in the past. And they wanted to not only grow with Walmart but also elevate someone who they saw potential. And I've created some really strong relationships that extend to this day. I manage things like the sponsorship of Essence Festival, relationships with BET, One Solution, media campaigns, BET Awards, things of that nature that were just incredibly fulfilling and fun, to be perfectly honest with you. But being able to tell those authentic campaigns that required to really look at this is not performative. How do we really touch on cultural connections that speak to the customer, but do so in a way that speaks to Walmart? We are not another brand. We are not Nike. We are not Sprite. We're Walmart. And so we have to make sure that we're driving in that lane in an authentic way while also connecting to the audience. So I'm getting there. I promise you, I'm getting to constituent relations. So let me know if I'm being too verbose.
No, this is good because you talked about cultural connections, and I go way back to what you had mentioned about the best decision of going to the FAMU and having a mentor. So that connection with that mentor still resides in you, right? Because now you're pouring into others, you're pouring into communities and things. Quick question: what does
Yeah.
CPG mean? What's that?
Consumer product goods. So
Ah,
yeah, think of the P&Gs, the Unilevers, all those brands you see on shelves. Those.
right. Awesome, awesome. Thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
so the question I also have is how did you flip the script? How did you shift from, man, I didn't want that job to to sort of owning that job? What changed?
So once I was determined to say, this is where you're at, this is where you've been placed or assigned, do the job. And getting into the work, and it became a place where I almost found my voice, where given permission almost to myself to say, you can speak up to the things that you may have seen in the past that you didn't like. This is your role now. So you have a way to influence what happens and how you would want to be spoken to if you were if you were on the other side of this coin, being and receiving these messages. And honestly, even within the network of media partners that I work with, seeing them and how they elevated themselves to be in the space and to take up space to say, we have permission and we do to be in these spaces and speak to what's right or wrong to the audiences that we're serving, and not just moving to the side of what other leaders may think is right, but you knowing what's right for who you're trying to talk to. And once I settled in that, it was fulfilling. It was like, no, Regine, you can do this. And this is enjoyable, and you're kind of good at this. So enjoy it and own this space and create the relationships in addition to the work to have impact. And it's the impact piece that caused me to then start to make this transition to constituent relations. That on top of, I truly believe that God, I'm not sure who's religious here, but for me, I am. God may position things that feel uncomfortable in that moment to set you up to make sure you move to the next.
Can you say
So I
that one
had
more
some,
time? Say that
God
one
will
more time.
position you to be uncomfortable in that moment to force you to move to the next. Again, I love my job. Let me be very clear. I loved my marketing job. I did some dope stuff, met some dope people. I worked with some incredible individuals, both inside of Walmart, outside of Walmart. Just, I can't speak enough to how much I enjoyed my multicultural marketing role. But there was some leadership that was making, and it wasn't an easy job. You still had to come with the data and the information to fight for what you needed for both African American, Hispanic, AAPI, work with multiple agencies to push for doing things that people may not have understood. But there were some leaders that were making it more difficult than what it should have been. And I spoke about when I was at Tyson Foods, when Sunday nights became one of the more difficult nights of the week for me. I had to go. I do not want to day in, day out come in and start complaining about someone or something happening. And I was like, I need to shift. As much as I love what I do, other factors are making it more challenging and I need to move. So
And
blessedly, go ahead.
sorry, Regine, and you talked about giving permission to yourself.
Yeah.
We have a lot of non-traditional, traditional students in this space, in the classroom today, in the Principles of Business course. Some are high school students here as well. They were like, "What in the world is giving permission to myself? What does that mean? What does that look like?" Could you walk us through that process of giving permission to yourself to elevate and
Yeah.
create space?
So for me, I am not one even to this day that doesn't have some level of doubts, right? Some people may call it imposter syndromes. I call it just the doubts you have in yourself of what you can or can't do. So a part of me felt like in going into this role, am I capable of doing it? Do I have the right mindset? Will they see me and respect my voice? And there came a place where I allowed myself to reside in what I know deep inside I have the capacity to do. And I allowed myself to feel free to fail and feel free to succeed and own both, whichever way it may happen. And so that for me is giving myself permission to be my full self, whatever that result may be. I hope that answered your question of what giving permission for me
Uh,
meant.
Ladies and gentlemen, give her a round of applause for that. Feel free to fail, feel free to grow, feel free to let go and then grow, right? It's and you talked about creating relationships. So again, going back to that mentor, going back to meeting the people where they are. You met yourself where you were, basically, right? The assignment that was given to you, you understood the assignment. You didn't want to do the assignment, but you stepped up and you met yourself where you were. That term, I just turned 47 last week, and it took me a while to be okay with the term. It is what it is,
Mhm.
right? Because we talk about, and you mentioned mental health and all those things. Mental health, when we talk about wellness, you have to be in a present moment. You have to understand your breath, pay attention to your heartbeat, pay attention to what is, right? And that's what you did.
Yeah,
You had the assignment. You didn't like what it looked like,
I did
but
not.
you stepped into it, and you stepped to it on faith with fear. But with faith and fear, that is where courage came about.
Yeah.
And so, can you talk about how you created courage in a place where you didn't even know it existed?
Well, I mean, I'm gonna keep it real. The first piece of courage was you're not quitting. Because guess what? It's my dad always said it's easier to get a job when you have a job. So quitting wasn't the option. So the only option I had at that moment was we're going to do this, but we're gonna do it the way I've always been taught as well as I've trained myself is you're gonna do it with excellence.
Yes.
You're not going to have any role where someone's going to say you couldn't do it or you didn't give it your all or you didn't give it your best. So that was a non-negotiable in just in terms of who Regine is as a brand. So the courage was I have bills to pay. But
That's true. That is very true, right? Raise your hand. All of us have bills to
listen,
pay. So that's what it is. That's what it is.
motivators are all across the board. That was a big motivator for me. But taking chances and risks in the rooms where leadership can often be intimidating because you may be saying something that they don't want to hear. For me, whether it be marketing or even now that I'm in constituent relations and happy to share more about what that is as well, is I realize that for me, and I don't know exactly when in the career path, I want to have a role that creates impact on at least one person and doing right within the room. So even if leadership may not like what I have to say or if it disagreed with them, I'm going to make sure I'm going to bed or going home and knowing that I said what needed to be said in the room because I won't be happy with myself. Me feeling like I did what was right in that situation, saying what I needed to say, proposing a plan that was best for the audience based upon the data and based on what the agencies have provided from a recommendation. It may not pass, it may not go through my leadership, but I know that I did what's best based upon what I know from a data standpoint, as well as trusting my gut. And so part of that confidence is, how are you feeling about the decision that you're making? Are you doubting it? Are you regretting it after you said what you needed to say or felt like you need to say to whomever? And if not, you got to go back and put your courage on and either switch it up or next time do better. But I don't want to go home with the regrets that I didn't say what needed to be said, but they needed to hear, in order to do what's right and have impact on at least one person or the audiences that we're trying to serve.
Yeah, impact driven is a round of applause for that. Being impact driven and understanding who you are and why you're doing what you're doing. There's a term I used to use when I used to manage musical artists, a phrase I would say, I guess it's from the, I guess it's the New Yorker in me, the Brooklyn New Yorker in me
All right, Brooklyn.
specifically. Come correct or don't come at all,
Mhm.
right? Uh, Elaborate, break that down for those who don't understand what that means. Come correct or don't come at all.
Every time when you enter a room, you get one chance, right? You're going to leave some level of an impression when you get in there. So when you go in, come with your best foot forward because you don't know what the second chance may look like. So you come correct, you come in your best self, in your best mindset. And I'm not saying, it's kind of like that phrase, bring your whole, you know how they say bring your whole self to work? I don't believe in it. I don't believe bring your best self every single day because your whole self may look different depending on what situation you're in, your mindset, what may have happened at the house, but bring your best self. And so when you come correct, bring your best self of who you have in terms of um, your thought process, your approach, because you don't get another shot. So if you're not ready to give your best self, it's not time for you to come into that room. It's not time for you to have that conversation. It's not time because you may not have another chance to present yourself to that person or to that situation again and have it be favorable. You want to always come in a place where people will see you in the best light of how you want to be received. Because the second chance may be denied.
Maybe. And what role does preparation play in that?
It's huge. It's huge. You're gonna go in blind to an interview? No. You're gonna go in blind before you present something? No. You're gonna go in blind before you negotiate a deal? No. You want to know who you're talking to, what you're talking about, make sure it's thorough, make sure it's concise and how you're talking about it, how they want to receive it. Learn more about who you're talking to. They may want something more detailed. Some people just want it short and concise. You have 5 minutes. You don't have time to give everything. So you have to make sure that preparation isn't only your knowledge, but how you present it to the audience that you're talking to. So preparation is vital to success.
And it's what we do in college, right? Your homework prepares you for that. Homework prepares you to get your tasks done on time and early. This
Hmm.
is just me putting on my professor hat. But even without that, there's assignments that you don't like. I go back to what you said. You were assigned this role. You didn't like it, but you got it done. You brought your best self. And I've never heard the difference. Thank you for sharing that. Sometimes you can't bring your whole self because our whole self, there are parts of ourselves that are really messy, but that's
You
okay.
don't want
That's
people to see my whole self some days. Absolutely not.
But that's okay. That makes us human. But
Mhm.
being our best self doesn't mean it needs to be perfect. It needs to be prepared, understanding what you're doing. You did your homework, you did your assignments, you understood the room that you're in, and you are now in the room where it happens. Shout out to Leslie Odom going back to Hamilton, right? So
Absolutely.
talk about this. What is this director of constituent relations at Walmart? What does that mean? What does that look like? What is the day to day for you?
Yeah. So, I was going into how when I was in marketing, it was becoming a bit more of a struggle in terms of some of the personalities that I was working with, and my options where I have to change. I wanted to stay with Walmart, but outside of Walmart at the time was definitely an option. And blessedly, when I was in that role, I got a chance to meet my current manager, and things have a way of just timing when they're supposed to. So the person who had my role before had recently left the company, and so this position was available. And constituent relations is a team. Other organizations call it external affairs, and it's meant to build trust and relationships outside of the organization. And so the way I describe what I do is building trust in communities to help people understand who Walmart is, not just what we do. So I'm not sure how many of you shop at Walmart. Hopefully a lot of you. But there are those who have sometimes had challenging experiences in Walmart, only see us as places where we sell stuff, may have heard other opinions about Walmart, but not necessarily know what it is that we do. And too often, people don't realize that we are doing work that is impacting and working with communities. So I work with primarily in the Black and African American community, underserved and under-resourced communities, and I work with organizations like NAACP, National Urban League, um, Noble, the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement, NBCDI, a number of organizations that are uplifting communities. We also work on other groups within constituent relations. Women is a category, LGBTQI plus is a community, AAPI, um, um, our Hispanic communities, Indigenous, and so really looking across various communities and supporting organizations that are supporting the communities that we serve. And I've been focusing a lot on health and wellness because all of our communities need the support of health and wellness. And I have been doing a lot in maternal health. So just this past weekend, I was in Houston and I was happy to have connected with a woman whose name is Reverend Dr. Q English. She used to be a member of our Health and Human Services with the previous administration and started something called the Moms Tour, which is now called the Thrive Tour. And they go to underserved and under-resourced communities across the country to provide information on mental health, advocating for yourself, talking to other health professionals around what to anticipate going into the room, how to work with, have the dad also be a part of that process because it's incredibly important. But when thinking about the communities that we're serving within constituent relations, maternal health is an incredibly difficult issue that is hurting all communities. But having this discussion has been one that has risen a lot within the Black and African American community as well. So I wanted Walmart to be a part of this because what we can provide is education around nutritional wellness and how important that is for mom and baby, um, and the whole family, as well as what pharmacy provides. Many people don't know that for much of America, pharmacies are the most accessible point of care. And so Walmart can provide that connection of the point of care services we have, the experts that we have behind the counter, as well as the products that we have available at affordable prices. So it was great for Walmart to be there and show that we are not just in the community, but of the community, and that we're a resource for them. We also work with organizations like For Cure for Moms. So the founder, his name is Charles Johnson. He lost his wife after giving birth to their second child, and so he started this organization who not only supports other families who have had this challenge, but also being a source of information, advocating on the Hill and others to change policies so that more moms can go home with babies. So I'm just sharing some of those examples of how Walmart supports organizations that support communities, but also how Walmart steps in and actually is a part of these events to bring the services and resources we have available to support activations as well as community efforts to build stronger, healthier, and communities can live better.
And round of applause for that, ladies and gentlemen. Please unmute your mic. Because what you're saying is something you and I worked on together. And so Regine and I met at the Black Men Excel conference last year. I switched my phone, so I don't have the silly pictures that we took. I wish I wanted to share that and take a moment to laugh, but I can't find the pictures. But she and I connected at the sponsorship area, and I felt that the energy that you're feeling now is the same energy she and I had at that space, and un she understood what Miami-Dade College is, right? Our slogan is opportunity changes everything. And we serve, I like to rephrase that term underserved to untapped. We serve untapped communities. A community, because you think about wrestling, right? Wrestling back in the day, you had Hulk Hogan or the tag team, and Sometimes you just need the other person to get into the ring because you're about to, get knocked out, and sometimes you don't tag him in, and so you lose the match. Ah, you know. And so what happens is I encourage us to tap into those untapped communities because you never know what that untapped community can bring to the table, can bring to the match of life, right? To take down those things that we're all affected by, right? Mental health. Um, you mentioned about um, wellness and those so many different things. Imagine if we tapped in everybody. That's huge because we are able to serve those communities that are identified as underserved, underrepresented. You represent really well when you're in those communities. You serve pretty well. I've been to certain spots where there's a lot of things that are not happening, but you serve each other, But let's just tap in to those communities and change things. Then you're doing that. And so please give Regine a thank you. For those of us, I think Suede, you were there for the healing power of the arts. You helped us bring um, Dr. Delapo Enrique Tola to Miami-Dade College, and he spoke about 60% of success is about showing up. And you helped bring him here to reiterate the importance of showing up for each other, showing up for ourselves. And you said this, Regine, you meet people where they are. You
Yep.
met yourself where they are, and that where you are, and that's amazing. So not bad. I went off on a tangent there. But what would you tell yourself? At freshman year of college, what advice would you give yourself today in April 22nd, 2025? What would you tell your freshman self today?
I would tell her then, as I would tell her now, stay open to say yes to things that feel uncomfortable. Don't continue to live. I try to live with two, sorry, I'm at home and I have a baby girl that she's 5. So if you hear background noise, my apologies.
No worries. Bring her in. Bring her into the conversation if you want to. It's okay.
Let her have her moment. If it gets too loud, let me know. But one second.
Yes, but thank Regine for that. She was able to help put that together, and Walmart, and in terms of the constituents, we being the constituency, and tapping into, we have Daniel Gordine. I didn't put him on Front Street, but he's here. He's also part of the School of Business, but he's very much he understands. He sees what we do and how we serve. Um, and I don't know who does anyone who here doesn't know Daniel Gordine at the College of School of Business.
I don't think anyone does.
Okay, Daniel, as Regine comes, as we wait for Regine to come back to tap in, tell the people who you are and how you serve at the college.
All right, so good evening, everyone. My apologies for being late. I was with the Faculty Wellness Committee here at Wilson. They just had their sort of follow up to the wellness luncheon that took place earlier this year. But I serve as the academic coordinator for the School of Global Business, Trade, and Transportation. And so my role really is supporting the 4 disciplines, global business, college-wide, aviation, culinary, hospitality, and supporting faculty and faculty initiatives that benefit you guys and the work that they do outside of the classroom in terms of curriculum and bringing partners and bringing wonderful individuals to the college and manifesting all of that great energy into what you guys learn in the classroom. And so I also am an adjunct faculty for hospitality as well. And so I'm really just a co-collaborator with all of the disciplines and faculty, and of course, a lot of the administrative things and around campus here at Wilson. You'll see me at student events here at Wilson, and occasionally you'll see me with faculty as well at different things that they're working on, and just really trying to be a support to Professor Desouvre and other faculty that are here at Wilson and all of the other campuses. So
Awesome.
thanks for having me.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you. Hello, little one. How's it
Right?
how's it going? Hi.
So this is Rebecca. You can say hi to Rebecca. Hi.
Hi there, Rebecca.
Um, so sorry about that. She was calmer if she sits on my lap.
Okay.
So I'll close out. So the two things, and I'm sorry for interrupting you, Daniel, forgive me.
No,
Not at
it was
all.
perfect timing. It
Not
was,
at all.
it was,
Is I would tell her then, I tell her now, live life with as minimal regrets as possible. So your decision making, you may never know what the other decision may have been, but you should be able to know which one was better for you. So minimal regrets. And then I try to live life where it's worth something after I leave. I want to impact at least one person, and I feel as though my life will have been of value to be on this earth if one person is better off because I was here. And that's not meant from like a vanity perspective. I just feel as though we're all here to help at least one person. If we did just have that commitment to help at least one person, it's kind of like tapping in. That's what you were saying, right? If we all just tap in and are committed to help with at least one person and have that goal, they will then help one person who will then help one person. And then we can all start just helping each other in much more of a domino effect. So say yes to the things that are uncomfortable because typically it's within that discomfort you're going to grow. Live a life where you have minimal regrets because I think that's truly where happiness can come from, where you can say, I am here with a reason. Sometimes it's a season, but it's always with a purpose. So make sure you kind of understand. You may not understand that purpose until later, but make sure it's with minimal regrets as to why you're there and learn from it. There's no loss and failure. There's only ways to grow from it. The only loss if you decide to stay where you are and not grow from it. And the last is do work in your personal or your private life or in your work life uh, that fulfills you in some capacity. It could be working with widgets. It could be working, with people. Everyone has a purpose here. I am so happy for the mathematicians. That's not my, ministry. I am so happy for my sister is gastro bypass surgeon. I am so happy she exists. That is not my ministry. So once you understand and learn your ministry, everyone has a role. Just make sure it gives you some level of fulfillment. Because I'll go back to what she's more like my big sister now, but my mentor then said, uh, you can't live for Friday. That is a very difficult, that's a long part of your week to just hope for Friday afternoon, evening, and try to live your life on Saturday and Sunday. Monday through Friday, I don't know what the fraction is percentage wise, but 5/7 of your week is going to be around the people that you work with. If you are miserable, you will be miserable on your weekends too. So that's what I would tell her then, and that's what I would tell her now, and I do regularly.
Awesome. And with that, right before we go to a quick Q&A, give a round of applause. Unmute your microphone for Regine and Rebecca Moore. Woo! Awesome. That's about 70%. I just did the math.
Okay, great.
It's about 71%. And that is, yeah, you don't want to live that life where
No,
you.
no,
So
life is short.
life is way too short. But yes, any quick questions or thoughts or feedback for Regine? Feel free to raise your hand. Okay, I think Daniel has a question.
All right. Hello again. Sorry I came on late. I was at another event. I heard you talk about mental health earlier when I came on, and just wanted to know what kind of mental health practices do you use to sort of keep yourself together. I think it's important for students to know that, especially at some point in time, we all feel when we kind of check out emotionally or something is bothering us, but we know that we have to continue, get up and keep going to keep our lives going. And so, what are some of the practices that you utilize for yourself post-COVID? As the world has changed and there's always integration of things that affect our psyche and whatnot. And I think it's important, like I said, for us to know what can we do when we kind of feel out of line that we can, kind of stay back on track.
Um, COVID was definitely a time for me, as many in America, in the world, realized the importance of mental health. I was pregnant during COVID, and I had a number of panic attacks where I felt like myself nor my baby were going to walk out of the hospital. I thought we were just going to Honestly, I thought we were gonna die there. Like I just had panic attacks galore. Um, and it's not the same, but even now I realize I'm going through, because of the state of the world that we're in and the changes that happen hourly, that my my joy was being compromised and I was stressing over things that I can't control. So one of the things that I started to do then and have gotten into more, even a more intentional space right now, is I make sure I keep track of my blessings intentionally. So for me, what that looks like is, I know my family and friends probably get sick of it, but throughout my week, the mundane as well as the exciting, I take pictures. And I'll have these funny moments and I'll laugh and I'll capture them. And then at the end of the week, I've been doing these reels where I get to look back on, I've been really blessed. Like I have these two incredible kids. She was just laughing, riding her little car down the street with the laughter of just complete innocent joy. I have a son who gets on, he's 13. So when I say this, it's all loving. He's a tween. He gets on my nerves like crazy, but then he'll come back and tell me he got a great grade on his test. I went line dancing. I go line dancing like every week when I can, because it brings me, like, it's a small thing, but it brings me joy. And I think part of what keeps my mental health is intentionally acknowledging as well as making space for joy, because the stress is going to come. And how can I control the things that can make me happy, as well as capturing that and not letting the other things take that joy away? So that's one piece that I would recommend. Two is, I don't know if I call them board of directors of sorts, but who is your circle of people that will check you, give you that instructive feedback on where you are, that you will trust implicitly to go, this is what, and they may give it to you and you didn't even ask for it, but you should know who you can trust and who you can't in that respect. And for me, that helps me stay grounded on how am I doing as a friend, as a mom? Because when things go off kilter, someone's going to recognize it. It may be someone in the family, it may be a friend, but you should be able to have those voices that you can either bounce stuff off of. Maybe it's to vent for that moment. And you have friends you can vent to, and you have friends who you need feedback from. They are not the same. So, who can give you some input to help you mentally check yourself and get back to a space? Third, I believe in therapy. So I do speak with someone, not as regularly as I should, but when I do, I always come back a bit more mentally focused on what's important. And speaking of importance, keep a list in check of what is important in your life. And that kind of goes back to the joy and blessings piece is, if you understand what's important in your priorities, you'll make better decisions to keep you grounded and settled and protect your mental health. When you begin to distract yourself on things that are not a part of your priorities, and priorities change, but when you start to distract yourself on things that aren't nearly as important, that's when I feel as though the mental stress and the anxiety comes, is because you're filling your cup with rocks that aren't important. So for me, my family, my health, my work, and how do I keep regime, not just regime the mom, not just regime the wife, not just regime the friend, the sister, the daughter, regime. What do I like? What am I passionate about? What are things that fulfill me? And that's my order of my top four. And I don't think that anyone should lose themselves in the midst of their other things, because that is going to mess with you. I tell people, people focus on, oh, I got so many hyphens. I have this job and I have this job and I do this thing. We have personal hyphens, right? I'm a hyphenated person on arts and crafts. I'm a hyphenated person on wanting to take myself to the movies. I'm a hyphenated on wanting to line dance. These are all my different hyphens of regime before the work. So I think those are the things that for me have helped me stay fairly mentally at peace in the midst of all the chaos. Because if not, I will get into my swirl and I will be unhappy, and the people around me will be unhappy because I can be a little bit of a storm when I'm unhappy. So we like to keep the sunshine. I'm in the home. Again, my whole self, the world don't need to see.
Thank you. Sounds like you've got your boundaries, and that's what keeps everything together, so to speak. And I think that's important for students for them to know that about boundaries and respect them.
Yes.
And once you start respecting them, everything else comes easy. You're not exactly robotic, but you know what your triggers are and how to respond to something so that, you know, your mental health is good.
Yeah.
So thank you for
Yeah.
sharing.
Of course, Daniel. No is a powerful word. No is a beautiful word. And
Yeah.
when you can use it properly, to your point, those boundaries are real. I'll give you one boundary, and I think Miguel has a question that I try to do for most of my week. So I drop my kids off, and then I go to the gym. And if people try to book meetings with me during my gym time, 9.5 out of 10, it's going to be canceled. We will move it because I truly believe there's another time in the day that we can find in our week where we can connect. Because again, my family, my health is up there. Physically, I had elevated A1C that I found out a couple years ago. And so I will be in that gym taking care of me because once your health is gone, all the other stuff will fall into shambles.
Yeah.
So, on a quick note, y'all check on your numbers. A lot of us are dying way too young or don't realize we have issues, whether it be diabetes, heart hypertension, heart issues, kidney disease. Get yourself checked out. You may not hear the news you want to hear, but you have time to correct it. So, this is my little PSA on health.
Awesome. And Regine, right before we get to Miguel and another term, right? Okay, we'll go back. The wise words of Ice Cube. Check yourself before you wreck yourself, right?
Mhm.
For those of you, yes, you Generation Xers, you guys just say the weirdest things. But the guy who's going to make Friday in the next another Friday movie, check yourself before you wreck yourself. And Regine, you said something about I found the picture. I found our picture, and I think this is fun. That picture right there. I don't know if everyone could see it. That just just being silly in that space. But yeah, I'm you got to just be able to be silly and
Conference about that conference you guys had that picture.
yeah. That
What
was
was
the
that about?
that was the Black Men Excel conference. We just having fun, just
Yeah.
enjoy the moment, and that's what it should be about. So Miguel, yes, you have your question.
Yeah, I was continuing on that mental health track. How do you think that the financial or even like I see that you have your routine like schedule so you can have your priorities set for your financial health. How do you think the financial part of it affects the that the mental health?
I think it's incredibly so holistic wellness, in my opinion, is your mental health, physical wellness, as well as your financial wellness. And they all are connected. So if your physical health is your bodily physical health is jacked up, that's gonna mess with your money. Your money's messed up, it's gonna mess with your mind. Your mind is messed up, it's gonna mess with your body. Your body messed up, it's gonna mess with your money. So it's all connected. So being able to understand, don't spend more than what you got, right? Don't live beyond your means. There are a lot of ways to do what you need to do without having to get the brand name of things, right? Or to live in the biggest home or the biggest, like, understand your finances of where you are and also look for where you want to be. The earliest, the earlier you can start investing and saving, do so. I wish I would have done so when I was in college. I did it shortly after I became in corporate America, but I wish I would have done it sooner. Figure out ways where you can pull out dollars to start saving so that later on in life you can retire on the year you want to retire and work is an option. Unfortunately, things are getting more expensive. Things are becoming harder, to save than years ago and to kind of start um having the savings that you want so you can retire. But there's also so many other opportunities versus what there were back in the day to be able to have multiple incomes and streams of income. So I hope I answer your question that it's connected. And if for anyone that thinks that those three things work in silos, they don't. They're all working together. And for people who have businesses, right? If your physical health is shot, guess what you're not making? Money on your business because you can't get out of bed or you in a hospital. Oh, guess what else went up? Your medical bills. Oh, guess what? Now you're stressed out because you can't pay
That's
your
why
workers.
delegating also is like an important thing about doing a business. Like because if you get sick, if you can delegate some tasks, you can like take some days off. But at the same time, what is some advice you will give to your 19-year-old self? Like I'm 19. What is some advice? I I know about the investing. I've been investing on stocks at the same time with this tariffs ain't that good, but little by little, step by stepping up the investment. But what do you think are some advices for like a 19-year-old you would give some
From a business standpoint or from just in general?
in general in business, like just advice?
So one advice is, I feel like even at 19, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. If you do have the blessing of knowing where you were trying to go, that's amazing. If you don't know exactly where you're trying to, don't be afraid to try things that you've never done before. Put yourself out of your comfort zone. I think one of the best things that have happened to me is that it kind of goes back to saying yes to things that you never thought. I never thought I'd be in Arkansas. I'm from Long Island, New York. I wore Timbs and bubble jackets and Scullies. Going to Arkansas was not a part of my plan. Okay? Um, say yes to things that you didn't think. And I will say, a lot of my friends thought I was crazy. They're like, "You're going where?" And I was like, "I'm going to Arkansas." Did people visit me? No. Was I there on my own for a hot minute before I met my husband? Yes. Did I end up spending money that I didn't have? Yes. Um, but say yes to things that don't seem cool or what your friends are going to do or where they're headed. Again, a lot of my friends went to Atlanta. What is some swim upstream, but do it your way. Don't try to live the life of someone else or how they're doing it because there's only one Miguel Rodriguez Chaparro. I'm not sure if I said your name right, and I apologize if I didn't, but I tried really hard. Um, I think understanding that there's only one you, and that's beautiful that there's only one you, and don't try to do something that anyone else on this call may do for themselves. Do it for you, right? So that would be one piece. From business, ask questions. Ask others. You don't know everything. At any age, you don't know everything. So ask people, get advice. You don't have to do all the advice. Everyone's not going to give you good advice. So
Nice to
you're
know.
going to,
It's nice to know.
yeah, it's some of it's nice to know, right? But be willing to listen and not think that you have all the answers. Learn from their failures, learn from their successes. Be okay to fail, right? Strategic failure, right? It should be one that has been a little calculated. It shouldn't just be willy-nilly. You should have the rationale as to how or why you got there so you don't make the same mistakes. But failure is not the end. Failure is just another stepping stone until you get back up and do it better next time. So as you talk about business and investing, some of those investments may go wrong, but you're doing it early enough that those mistakes won't cripple you and you'll learn. And before you know it, you over here, you talk about you're 47, Jonathan, I'm 41. At 41, you're going to be in a lot better position than I because you're starting now. And I think that's dope.
Really. Thank you for sharing that. So I think Rachel, I'm messing up Rachel's name. Is it
No,
Rachel?
you said it right. Yeah.
So it's Rachel. It's spelled in a very
Yeah.
unique way. I'm
Yeah.
happy it's spelled that way. Rachel has a question. I think it'll be our last question, and then Jean, you'll have the last word, and they definitely need a break because we've been on since 6:30, so we've been tired. But yes, Rachel.
My question is just since I heard you talk about God and a lot about faith, I'm a strong believer and I really feel and believe that I want do what God like or purpose that God has put me. But I struggle a lot with making decisions. So how did faith contribute to your decision making and how do you apply it to whatever you wanted to go or do?
For me, God has always been my North Star, right? So he's has been, I listen, I pray, I I try to stay guided by what he tells me, right? So I try not to make moves without first consulting and praying around what my next move should be. But also if it's a response that I may not like, because you may hear things that's not what you look for. That's not what I thought. No, you ain't saying that, God. Let me ask again. Maybe I asked wrong. Let me rephrase what I said. And when he tells you, you're like, okay, if I'm gonna have faith and I'm gonna believe, then I need to take the leap. I need to, what feels like I'm walking off the cliff. And actually, there's just another ledge that I didn't see, right? And it caught me. And now look at what's available to me. It takes a level of trust to have faith, and it's uncomfortable often. But if you believe, right, that what he's telling you and what you've prayed for, maybe not answered how you believe, but what you prayed for will be answered. You have to go for it, and don't. I guess I'm not someone that says don't question him, because I think I've questioned, but we have the conversation. And sometimes he may give me the exact answer, sometimes not. But I think God is one that is open to having the conversation and hopes to understand. And sometimes he's going to say, like, I'm not telling you yet. I'm asking you to believe what I'm telling you is where you need to be. And then you're like, oh, so that's why you gave me that position that I didn't think I wanted, but now that I love and I'm so happy that I'm here and I've made all these things and I'm doing all this great work because you told me to put my big girl panties on, and now I'm here and I'm like, this is dope, and I've done all these great things and I made all this, like, I was mad. Kid you not. Faked sickness because I was so mad, until he was like, you need to get up and do this. And that's what I've tried to do through the course of my career, or just life in general. I live in New Jersey now, right? Moving back to the East Coast was nothing I prayed for specifically, but I'm grateful that it happened. There were things in Arkansas that I was, missing. And so coming to the East Coast has allowed and afforded me to have some of those things. So throughout my journey, from New York to FAMU, Tally, to Arkansas, and now in Jersey, has always been guided by God and prayer. And in addition, having your prayer warriors around you, be able to talk to people who you believe are connected to the God as you are, to have conversations with, because sometimes he works through people to talk to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel, for saying that. I often, for me, as a person of faith, when you live on purpose, when you live on purpose with purpose, you're living out the glory of God, right? When you live on purpose with purpose, you're living out the glory of God. But the last few words is yours, Regine, and we'll take a 7:40. We'll take a break. Come back at like 8 o'clock, and we'll meet in our groups, because this is the next week. Everyone's presenting. All of our groups are presenting, so they could present today too if they're available. But last word is yours, Regine. So thank you very much.
No, this was a pleasure. I've enjoyed you all, and hopefully this has been beneficial to you all in some capacity where something may have hit home. Um, I feel encouraged when I have the opportunity to speak with young people like you all, because it lets me know that there is like hope for this future. Like, you guys didn't see this, but I already took a screen grab, and if you see your faces, let me know if you don't want to see your face in my weekly like intentional moments, because you're now on it. Because this has been a blessing for me to speak with you all and just to hear questions that you have. But I want you all to know that even in the midst of all the changes that are happening, there's so much beautiful in the world and so much beautiful to come, and that you all have the opportunity to shape it and change it for yourselves and for your communities. Know that nothing that you do truly lives in a vacuum. Everything that you do will touch someone else, whether it's your family, your community. I believe in butterfly effects. So do know that your decisions are not necessarily your own. It's going to touch on someone, maybe not in the moment, but in the future. So make sure you do ones that positively impact you, but also think about the greater good of others, because all be better off if we don't only think about ourselves and the choices that we make, and really think about how do we hope that the world is for ourselves, but also for generations to come. So I can't wait to see what you guys do. Do know that if there's anything I can do in the future for you, questions, you can get my information. Happy to talk with any of you individually, email, or if you want to jump on a call. God bless. I'm excited. That's all I got. Because I said everything earlier. I'm just going to be repetitive.
Okay, awesome, awesome. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, if you're able to get your cameras on and your hands up in the air and just mute your microphones, ladies and gentlemen, round of applause for Regine Moore. Woo! Blup, 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 blup. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Yeah, hopefully you're not gonna wear your Timbs in the summertime.
Probably. Like, no, like I'm a Tim's person for life. Tim's are all weather. I have no clue what you're all weather. I wore my Tim's yesterday and it was
There
like
you go.
going on 70 degrees.
All
Yeah.
right, all right, all right. So thank you again very much for your time. I'll see you on the other side. We definitely have to talk more. There's some amazing things happening, scholarship related affairs. And some of our last year, a few MDC students won the scholarships within ABJ South Florida. And I'd love to continue to talk about ways we can be constituents and serve our community and tap into those who are untapped. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you
thank you
all.
very much.
All right.
I think my internet is acting a fool. But thank you, everybody. It's 7:41. I'll see you all at 8 o'clock. Okay? I'm gonna take attendance too while your camera's off.